everybody. Welcome back to another episode of HiDefHistory as we explore the historical details that you can find in the world of video games. And today we're going to continue exploring as Assassin's Creed Origins as Donna flies around on Senu to see the sights of Alexandria. Last time we had the opportunity to explore the lighthouse, the Pharos of Alexandria, as well as some information on the use of Egyptian obelisks in this culture, and a little bit of the history of the city itself. So if you want to go to our channel, make sure you can check out all the high-def videos that we have stored there. As Donna tries to decide whether or not
I can't get
to
up
be
this
on
thing. Why can't I get up there?
Defeated by scallop shells.
You know what? Fine. Did you just laugh at me?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that you?
They did. There's no doubt. Well, look at your face. Look, would you not laugh at somebody?
What did I do to my face?
Definitely heard it.
So, falling off that thing grievously injured my face?
Apparently. Alright, as Donna clambers around these hills, we're going to see if we can't find out where we are in the town so she can get where she needs to go.
Alright, I'm here. This is where I am.
I'm
at this nice building.
One of the things that's really interesting that you hear as you start shoving people around is they start yelling at you, and most of the time it's in a foreign language. And generally, like, you can get the gist that they're not happy with you, but, you know, go ahead and knock this guy over, see what he says to you. Now, the interesting thing about that is the people at this time would have spoken a type of Egyptian known as Demotic, which basically is kind of a Egyptian language with Greek words added to it because of the Ptolemaic dynasty was founded by a bunch of Greeks. But one of the interesting things about history is we actually know more about an older Egyptian language called Middle Egyptian. So when the game designers went to have audio of people talking in this, they decided that since they had a better, more complete understanding of Middle Egyptian, they were going to use that instead of Demotic, which they actually taught, because they really aren't 100% sure on how all the different parts of that language work together. Alright, so we're in the Serapeion, a temple to the god Serapis. You hear several quests associated with this in the game. You can come and help the priests out, there he is. You see his statue scattered through the city of Alexandria. Now, Alexandria is a major urban center in the ancient Mediterranean world. For over almost 1,000 years, it was the capital city of Egypt. It wasn't until later on in the 7th century that you see with the invasion of the Arab and Islamic armies that the capital and center of power starts to shift from this coastline down towards the city of Cairo and some of the outlying towns there. A lot of that also had to do with the fact that the Nile, as it silted up, was no longer able to provide transportation from Alexandria to the rest of Egypt. It kind of became cut off and sort of withered on the vine. Although it's you can still go visit Alexandria today as a tourist hotspot. There's a lot of ruins and buildings all over the place. Although most of the Alexandria that we're exploring today, what's left of that would be underwater at this point. Although there's some really cool underwater snorkeling trips you can do to kind of check out some of these ruins. Why don't you pop up in Senu and I'll show you where we're going to get going. Up on the...
Okay, yeah, no, I totally knew what I was doing.
There it is. Okay, so there's the lighthouse off in the distance, just like a really awesome, one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. Again, just totally cool. All right, so we got the open air amphitheater right there, and you see that where there is off to the right here, that sort of cupola on top of that building.
Yeah.
That is where we want to head off to.
Can I just fly Senu over there?
No, you can't.
Darn. All right.
But you can set the marker on it, and
we'll just be
head off in that direction.
Not a bird.
Oh, actually, you know what? Pull up your map, and there's one closer on the way that we can look at before we go there. So go ahead and get in your map real quick. Up to the left a little bit, left, up, up there. That.
The Great Library.
That's the one we want. Let's go check out the Great Library.
Did I just mark it?
You did. So that's where we're going to get going. 182 meters
How do
that
I-
away. There it
How do I know?
is.
Oh, there it is. I see,
See
it.
it? Okay. All right. So as we get headed off that way, the
Curse this miserable city.
Curse this miserable city.
They all rot.
Oh, I really gotta figure
she's
out how
got
high
some.
he can
She's
jump.
got some strong feelings about this. All right. So we are headed off to probably what is one of the other sort of significant and famous monuments and landmarks in the city of Alexandria. Lighthouse is one of the ancient wonders. And then also what we have here is the Great Library of Alexandria. So not only is it a trading center, incredibly wealthy, capital city, it's also a center of learning and understanding in the ancient world. And inside this library here, they have a mission where the Ptolemaic pharaohs attempt to collect all knowledge in the world. And that was their sort of goal here as they were kind of setting everything up together here. One of the cool things about this is that they are part of a larger, it's not just the library itself, it's actually also part of basically like an ancient university that was called a museum, where we get the modern word museum from. Basically, it was a temple dedicated to the muses, the 9 gods, got 9 goddesses in Greek mythology who sponsor the arts. And so the muses, the museum is the temple dedicated to the muse, and the library was a part of that. So.
Oh gosh, that's a person. I thought you were a statue.
So what you see here is there are thousands and thousands of papyrus scrolls in this library. Obviously, this game kind of only gives us sort of a basic understanding of what it would look like. And there were no book bindings or anything like that, so everything was sort of in these rolled up pieces of paper. And obviously that would be, difficult to preserve. Now, the Library of Alexandria is probably most famous for being destroyed. So it was burnt down, not just once, but probably several times. And when you have all of this knowledge and understanding and learning sort of in one room, and you study everything by candles and have open flames near lots of paper, that's just a recipe. You're asking for trouble. Although the city itself was probably there's conflicting reports on whether or not Julius Caesar, when he invaded Alexandria at this time period that Bayek is alive, whether or not he was the one responsible for setting fire on it. There's some ancient accounts that claim his soldiers are the ones who burnt part of it down, and other parts say, no, that wasn't him. So at the height, there were over 400,000 papyrus scrolls in there. And the other thing I just wanted to point out there is that they also had a practice called books of the ships, which if you entered into, don't do that.
You know my faces too well.
I just knew. So if the library had a policy that if a ship docked in the port of Alexandria, they were allowed to send somebody on board, and that person would search for any scrolls or knowledge that the library did not have. And if they found something that was missing from their collection, they would take it from you, okay? And then they would copy it and keep it in the library. But you didn't get to keep the original scroll. They kept the original. You got their copy of whatever it was. And if you didn't like it, I guess you could go sail somewhere else. Okay, so as we're entering up into this area, we're going to be visiting a couple other landmarks here. There's one other place I wanted to visit.
I guess we can't climb
I don't
this
think
wall.
you can climb that particular wall.
Ooh, look at this. This is nice. There's so much fire, guys. You
Why
really
don't
should be more
you
careful.
pop up, get Sanu, and then, or you know what? Make sure. No, do the map real quick. I want to make sure that's the right building we're looking at here before we start talking about it. Now, a lot of these are sort of.
It doesn't have a name. Oh, here it is. Its name is
I
Fast
haven't
Travel.
found it yet. Go up a bit. Hold on. Go up.
Oh, we gotta do this.
All right,
Ooh,
we're
there's a
gonna come
question
up
mark.
here. All right, so why don't you climb this cupola? So I'm coming up here. Gonna find out. Ta-da!
You found
Something,
awesome stuff.
whatever it is, we're gonna climb to it.
That's because that's what Bayek does. He climbs.
And really, that's all you need in a game of Assassin's
We still
Creed.
haven't found it.
No, you gotta go up. Probably have to climb up the pillars or something.
Oh, jeez. Like you can't find stuff without like.
You gotta go
Being all the way up.
the way up. Yeah.
All right.
Some,
Oh yeah.
do it.
And
Do
and
it.
we're gonna climb the statue.
Right there. Synchronize. Do-do-do.
Woo.
Behold. Okay, actually, yeah, I think it's on the same street as the library, so we might have wandered off track a little bit.
Well, let's find out where we are.
But you get it. And it's actually, like, as it pans around, you can kind of see why trade was so important with this Mediterranean Sea on one side, Lake Mareotis on the other, which the Nile flows into, connecting it to the rest of Egypt. Incredibly easy for goods to be transported to the port and then down the Nile and to the rest of Egypt. All right, so we climbed up a temple, stood on top of man's head. We're ready.
When don't we
We're
do
ready.
such things?
All right, so hop back into the map. Let's get the point up so you know where we're going.
All right.
All right, so you want to go straight up, but now we're going to go right...
To this death place?
No, not to the death place. Right, let's see. Oh, nope, the scroll. Find the scroll again. Yeah, that's where we want to go.
All right.
All right, so she's highlighted a building that is called the Tomb of Alexander the Great, which is actually where Alexander's body was eventually buried. And I say eventually because Alexander didn't die in Alexandria. This is one of several cities during the course of his campaigns fighting across most of the ancient world that he named after himself. He liked Egypt. He liked Egypt a lot, actually, because this was one of the first places in the world that really was like, you must be a god. And he was like, you know what? You guys have probably got that right.
I mean,
in fact, he preferred he preferred people to call him the son of Zeus Ammon, which is a combination of Greek and Egyptian gods in this. And he visited the oracle at Siwa, and they confirmed that he was, in fact, descended from Zeus as a son. All right. So anyways, how did his body end up here? Because he did not die here, and so what do you do with this? Well, after he died, his generals were trying to figure out what to do with his empire because none of them could agree on who his successor was. He died very young. He had no children that were the age to take over it. So he was just really struggling. The empire broke apart, and different warlords took control. Ptolemy the First seized control of Egypt because it was the region of the empire that Alexander had given him to control. Another general by the name of Seleucus, he had the body of Alexander, and he was in the process of transporting it to Babylon in his portion of the Alexandrian empire that he controlled, because that felt like, as the eastern capital, that was where it would make sense to have him buried. Along the way, though, Ptolemy hijacked the guy's body, stole it from his Seleucus's soldiers, and took it to Alexandria here, where he had created a mausoleum for him. Not because Alexander really wanted it, but just because that was here. So eventually it was buried in, first it was buried in the city of Memphis, Egypt, which was a city along the Nile to the south of here. And it was sort of hidden there until all the ruckus over the body being stolen was died. And Ptolemy the First, his son, Ptolemy the Second, was the one who finished the tomb that Donna is climbing around and exploring here.
Yeah, I'm not very good at respecting boundaries.
Now, eventually what
comes
ends
to
up happening
tombs.
is that this tomb eventually, becomes more of a temple over the course of Alexandria's history, and a cult grows up around the body of Alexander the Great. So, eventually what ends up happening as we, come back to that city of Alexandria, eventually what ends up happening is there is a cult that grows up around Alexander the Great, and it becomes almost a religious following. And the Ptolemaic pharaohs, because they see how, everybody loves Alexander the Great, they decide that, we should be a part of it. So they actually have their bodies start to be moved into Alexander's tomb, and sort of a worship by proxy comes around, and they Pharaoh, the Ptolemaic family, also becomes worshipped as a part of this cult. Like Alexander has bestowed Egypt upon them, and they've helped make Egypt, a major player and power in the ancient world. And so it's also a big part of sort of Egyptian culture as well. Yeah. What's a high-def history without Donna setting herself on fire? Anyways, so that was one of the things. Now, one of the cool things about the tomb of Alexander here is that it is lost. We don't actually know in the city of Alexandria where this tomb is. We know it existed because it was talked about throughout various historical accounts throughout time. By time we see the 7th and 8th century, there are different European travelers who visit the city of Alexandria looking for the tomb and are unable to find it. Although there are also a couple reports from even as late as the 1400s, different individuals who wrote about their visits to Alexandria and how there was, even though it was basically a ruin at that point, there was still a building in the middle of it that the local natives would bring gold and money and offerings to, because it was the tomb of a very great man, Alexander. How true and accurate that is, well, we can't really confirm it, and we can't find it in the city right now either, even though there have been hundreds of attempts to find the tomb of Alexander the Great. So there's that. Oh, so one of the fun things about it is that one of the reasons they say the tomb was destroyed and is because Alexander's body is no longer there. And there are a couple theories about what happened to the skeleton of Alexander the Great. So he was hijacked by Ptolemy I, eventually brought to Alexandria and buried. After a couple of centuries, though, there's a possibility that his body could have been anywhere. It might have been stolen by some later Greek and Middle Eastern soldiers, and they took it up to the city, back to Greece to be buried with his family cemetery up in Macedon. Then there's also what I actually personally hope is really what happened, a story that a Venetian trader found Alexander's body, didn't believe them when they told him who it was, insisted it had to be Mark the Evangelist from the Bible, and took his bones back to Venice with him, where they installed it in a cathedral there as the bones of Saint Mark. And if you know anything about Venetian history, Saint Mark is the patron saint of that city. And so there are statues and different places dedicated to Saint Mark all over that place. And one of the reasons the lion is a symbol of Venice is because it's a symbol that's associated with St. Mark as well. So as we are finishing up here our brief tour of Alexandria, I hope you enjoyed your time sort of getting a glimpse into the world created by the folks over at Ubisoft. And they I love the detail and care it took to try and make this world as accurate as possible in this game. And that, even after 10 games, just never gets old. Alright everybody, so thank you so much for joining us in High Def History. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Make sure to leave a like or a comment if there's anything you want to add to the discussion. I'd love to hear comments and suggestions on future videos and games. We could look at the history of different places and eras. So I'd love to also get some great subscribes as well, because we can't do this without you. So thanks so much for watching. Bye.